Mannequins were a joke. Cold, unyielding plastic that felt nothing like real tissue. We'd all fumble with them, third-year medical students playing a sterile game of operation, our instructors correcting our hand positions with a detached professionalism. The GTAs, Gynecological Teaching Associates, were better. They were real people, trained to guide you, to give feedback. "A little more gentle there, doctor," they'd say, their voices calm and reassuring. It was awkward, sure, but it was safe. It was clinical. Dr. Eris Thorne thought it was all a waste of time. "Last cheaper agents are walking for the vat. You don't learn medicine by holding hands with actors," he'd grumble, his voice a low rumble that seemed to vibrate in your bones. "You learn from the sick, the broken, the ones who can't tell you what's wrong because they're too consumed by it." He'd taken a special interest in me, for reasons I couldn't fathom. Maybe he saw a flicker of the same morbid curiosity that had driven him. So, when he pulled me aside after a particularly grueling shift, my heart hammered against my ribs with a mixture of fear and anticipation. "Miller," he said, not meeting my eyes. He was staring down the long, shadowed corridor of the hospital's old north wing. "I have a real teaching case for you. 3rd floor, room 313. A chill that had nothing to do with the hospital's aggressive air conditioning snaked up my spine. The north wing was mostly decommissioned, a place for storage and forgotten equipment. The 3rd floor was supposedly empty. "A patient, sir?" I asked, my voice a little too thin. "A patient," he confirmed. "Came in last night, non-responsive, complaining of, well, the chart's on the door. This is the kind of exam you won't get from a GTA. This is the real thing." He finally looked at me, and his eyes were dark pools. "Go on, don't be timid." The walk to room 313 was a journey into the past. The polished linoleum of the main hospital gave way to cracked yellowing tiles. The fluorescent lights hummed with a sickly buzz, casting long, dancing shadows. The air grew heavy, thick with the scent of dust and antiseptic. A smell I'd come to associate with death. The chart on the door was unnervingly brief. No name, no age, just 2 words. Pelvic exam. I pushed the door open. The room was dark, the only light coming from the faint orange glow of a street lamp outside the grimy window. A figure lay on the examination table, a single white sheet draped over them, rising and falling with a breath so shallow it was almost imperceptible. "Hello?" I called out, my voice swallowed by the oppressive silence. "My name is Leo Miller. I'm a medical student. I'm here to perform an examination. Can you tell me your name?" There was no answer, just the whisper-soft sigh of that barely there breath. My hands trembled as I put on a pair of latex gloves. The snap echoed in the room like a gunshot. I walked to the table, my professional training warring with a primal urge to run. "Okay, I'm just going to move the sheet now." I explained every step of the procedure, my voice a desperate anchor to normalcy in the suffocating quiet. I talked about what I was doing, why I was doing it, what she could expect to feel. The woman on the table remained utterly still, a silent, shrouded effigy. Then I began the exam. The first thing I felt was the cold. It was a deep, penetrating cold unlike anything I'd ever felt. It wasn't the passive coolness of a body. It was an active, leaching cold that seemed to drain the warmth from my fingertips, up my arm and into my chest. I tried to ignore it, to focus on the anatomy, on the texture of the tissue.
It was all wrong.
There were no familiar structures, no landmarks my textbooks had prepared me for. The tissue felt ancient, brittle and yielding at the same time, like old parchment that threatened to crumble at my touch. A faint, musty odor, like earth in decay, filled my nostrils. My stomach churned. This wasn't a tumor. It wasn't a cyst. It was something else. Something my mind had no category for. I froze. My hand deep inside this cold, alien landscape. I had to get out. I had to tell Dr. Thorne. But as I started to withdraw, I felt it. A flutter.
It wasn't a muscle spasm.
It was a distinct, deliberate movement against my fingers. A slow, rhythmic tightening. A pulse where there should be no pulse. My blood ran cold. I couldn't breathe. The shallow breathing from the patient had stopped. The room was now utterly, terrifyingly silent. And then, a voice. Not in the room, but inside my head. It was a dry, rasping whisper. The sound of dead leaves skittering across pavement. Closer. My eyes shot to the woman's face, shrouded in shadow. I could just make out her lips, pale and cracked. They hadn't moved. The pressure around my hand intensified, not pushing me out, but pulling me in. The cold was now a searing agony, and the whispering in my head grew louder. A chorus of dry, dead voices. I felt a horrifying sense of displacement, as if my own consciousness was being squeezed out to make room for something else. With a strangled cry, I ripped my hand back. The feeling of release was sickening, like pulling free from a suction cup made of cold, dead flesh. I stumbled backward, my feet tangling in a loose floor tile, and fell hard against the wall. My gaze was fixed on the table. The sheet was moving. It was collapsing inward, sinking into the mattress as if the body beneath it was dissolving, hollowing out from the inside until there was nothing left but a deflated sack of cloth. I didn't wait to see what happened next. I scrambled to my feet and fled, bursting out of the room and sprinting down the derelict hallway, the sound of my own ragged breaths echoing in my ears. I didn't stop until I was back in the bright, sterile chaos of the main ward, collapsing against a wall, gasping for air. I found Dr. Thorne in his office, calmly sipping a cup of coffee. I spewed out a frantic, incoherent story about the room, the cold, the voice. He listened patiently, his expression unreadable. When I was done, he set his cup down with a soft click. "Room 313, he said, his voice quiet. "Miller, the third floor of the North Wing has been condemned for 20 years. There are no patients there." He paused, a flicker of something dark in his eyes. "There's nothing there at all. It's just an empty space." I looked down at my hand. It was pale, almost translucent, and blue veins stood out like a road map. A faint, earthy smell clung to my skin. The cold was still there. A deep, permanent chill settled into my bones. I knew, with a certainty that terrified me, that I hadn't been examining a patient. Dr. Thorne was right. You don't learn from the living. You learn from the broken. And sometimes, the broken things want to teach you a lesson of their own.